Yo, sir. This time I want to talk about, we're really close to Evo. We're only a couple of days away, so I want to hammer out a few more videos before it's time to go. But, this time I want to talk about something that I probably should have talked about a long time ago, which is, Falk's go-to okie options. Falk really struggles to chase down the opponents who, like, just back recover or anything, and you can get meaties with, say, like a forward dash. You can meaty with the Kugel. You can meaty with a forward hard punch for, say, in a lot of these knockdowns, like that. But against some characters, you can't do forward hard punch. Like against Balrog, he'll always be able to punish it, so you can't really go to that option very often. And Kugel's just kind of limp as something. The only reason why that would be effective is like it will get damage and it's fine if the opponent tries something. Frequently they'll try to jump, and that's when it will be most rewarding, is because it'll hit them out of the air and you'll get another knockdown, so you can keep moving towards the corner. But other than that, it's really not that threatening, and you're not quite in range that... Like, a big problem Falk has is keeping the opponents on the ground while moving into the range where she can apply pressure. So, like, getting those knockdowns, even if she can do, like, a limp meaty or whatever like that, which will, like, crush counter them if they're trying to press buttons or anything, still not that threatening. Like, because if you do anything else, if you just keep walking forwards, you don't... Almost all of Falk's buttons hit pretty low to the ground, which I'll cover when I'm talking about her pressure options as well in another video. But stand jab, crouch jab, stand light kick is the only one really that hits pretty high into the air, other than standing heavy kick, which you can't go to very often because it whiffs on crouchers, and it whiffs for a long time. Standing heavy punch does not hit as high into the air as it looks like it would. If I were to... I've just recorded a block option for him to forward jump after blocking something to demonstrate the problem with both Falk's pressure and just buttons in neutral. Is because anything, even if you have the frame advantage to press the button, they all hit so low to the ground that a jump will put them over it. So that's the big problem, which is why also that, like, the opponent can just sort of back off, and Falk doesn't have great safe options to, like, close in on characters backdashing or walking backwards. She doesn't have good lows to convert off of, because she can't special cancel a crouching medium kick. So basically, you need to just have better okie options, because you won't be able to control the match well enough if you don't get good okie when you do land your hits, because it is difficult to land those hits in neutral because of how much the opponents can escape those buttons by going to the air, among other reasons. Like, if a character has good options against Falk's standing heavy punch, that really shuts down her options in neutral. So the solution is, I usually, for a meterless knockdown, I usually just go for that, the catapult. Nowadays, previously I said that going for the SFVAE is the best option because it does the most damage and it gets a decent knockdown, but it's not. I prefer the catapult because it's faster, which gives them less time to think. And I just like it better. I just like the additional corner carry better for it. I tend to get hits more often, hitting them meaty after this than I did with SFVAE, because being able to walk forwards rather than having to dash forwards after the SFVAE hits gives me a little bit more flexibility in when and what I meaty them with if they back recover. But the important things are the options with bar. So everyone knows that you can get good okie by just leaving it at the EX catapult and then dashing a few times. Just dashing twice and then doing whatever. But I usually don't like to sacrifice that much damage just to get better okie. I mean, it is much better okie, but it is also, like, the entire point of this move is that it's a launcher, but taking it just as a launcher and then not getting more damage off of it is kind of eh. So instead, what I favor is doing the catapult into a gunshot, which will deal decent damage. It deals pretty high stun, and it will, more importantly, it gives the best frame advantage that you can get off of any of the options that you have to continue your assault on the opponent getting closer. Especially if you release the gunshot right away, you have a bunch of time. And in doing so, you can set up safe jumps against a lot of the cast if they back recover. God, I need to fix my buttons. Hang on. There we go. It should be good now. There we go. So you can set up on back recover, you can set up meaties with, depending on the range, jumping medium punch or heavy punch, which will beat out most characters' anti-air options, and Falk has a variety of other tools in the air to contend with characters that do have invincible anti-air options that would still be capable of beating those safe jumps. And because of the range of her jump-in buttons, they're safe jumps from really far away that you don't have to commit to doing anything. So I find doing that really handy against almost every single character. But in order to explain really the depth of this option, I need to also explain like Falk's other controllable options in the air. So Falk's options in the air are Feather, the air fireball, dive kick, and just falling down with a button. So in neutral, I would say most of these options are pretty crap. Air fireball especially is just a bad move. It has some purposes, but it's a high risk, low reward move. It's not great. There's a billion different ways to beat this. So this is Falk charging, gunshot, jumping, and shooting it at a decent jump height. So the various ways that you can beat these, I suppose I'll do it with a forward dash, or a forward jump, just to make it more apparent. All right, so here we go. So when Falk forward jumps or does whatever into the air gunshot, I've explained this in countless other videos, but I'll just recap quickly. As soon as you see it, you can jump over it and get a full punish. And I do have her blocking as soon as she lands. Sorry, that was still a punish. See, I do have her blocking. So yes, you can just get a full jump in punish easily on reaction. You can easily dash underneath. Well, depending on how tall you are and how bad your forward dash is. And it's still like a slow move to do in the air. You can easily air-to-air her before she has time to get it out. So any form of jumping really blows this up. If you're already jumping, any form of forward movement blows this up and leads to massive full punishes with whatever they want to do. Like so. If you're faking a jump in with it in order to bait out an anti-air, this is somewhat effective because if you're reacting to the jump in, this will still hit you. The fireball will hit you, but for very little reward. Depending on what their anti-air option is, if it's a crouching option like this, the fireball will usually hit them slightly later, which means that you'll be more plus once you land. As you can see, Falk's being +1 in that situation after she lands. Against most other characters, like there, Nash, I used a standing anti-air option, and Nash was +4 after both characters recovered. And there's just a billion ways to beat this, like, in regular neutral, other than just not even trying to call it out. Then there's the option that I use it for most frequently. Well, other than the option that I'm going to explain next, which is the doing it as soon as possible once you're leaving the air, sort of like a dive kick. Forward jumping in this space where her buttons won't necessarily, where you're playing footsies and contending with the other character's buttons. Then, as soon as they see her go up into the air, I just tried to forward dash there. If they're really fast at reacting, they can get underneath it. But usually if you're at this spacing, about this far away, they can't really get underneath it by forward dashing. If they're reacting to it, they can get to it by neutral jumping it, but if they try to forward jump, they'll go into it. They can still air to air it, but it's much harder for them to react to, and it's much faster. It's much more likely to hit, even though if the opponent is in any way already in the air, jumping on their own for whatever reason, or dashing on their own for whatever reason, it'll still just it'll still be whiffing forever and give them all the time in the world to blow it up. So this is a bad move, for the most part, but it does have some uses. See, the reason why it works when you're on doing a shallow jump like this into hitting it is because it's much faster. By the time that they can do, it's much faster and it's much lower to the ground. It's much more precise. It's harder for them, it gives them fewer options to beat it, unless they're looking for it. But, for the most part, they'll only beat it if they happen to be doing something before you decide to go into the air and do the instant air fireball. There are other situations, however, where you can control those other factors and variables and make it less likely that the opponent will be able to do something that will beat it. So here, just going back a few steps, I have Nash like waking up with some of his various anti-air options. Just to show you that that is indeed a safe jump on his the opponent's back recovery. And depending on what anti-air options the character even has, it is also a safe jump on their normal recovery as well. Like so. But not every character, that won't work as a safe jump against every character, and you won't always have the bar to be able to spend on that. So in like other knockdown situations, like off of Schneide or whatever, they'll still be able to wake up with plenty of time to anti-air. This is where your air, like baiting and meatying and just basically anti-air baiting with the air fireball comes in. Is when you have a significant frame advantage like this on a knockdown, you have the time to be able to set up those air fireballs in situations where you can cover the opponent's options, what they can do. Now, universally, I should note that you will never, like, unless you're hitting them with a guaranteed meaty with the air fireball, which is kind of pointless because it doesn't really net you anything on hit or on block, you will never be able to space the air fireball at a position and frame advantage such so that the opponent will not be able to beat it by either forward dashing instantly or jumping instantly. They'll always be able to do one of those two things. So, like, in that situation, here, I'll demonstrate. So here, I will demonstrate. So I have the character purposely mistiming it, but Nash does not have any anti-air options that will not beat a properly timed jumping hard punch after the knockdown, even on normal recover. But for like another character, they might be able to anti-air if they normal recover this knockdown. But instead, let us switch to the next one. Well, actually, wait, wrong one. the air fireball, which you can do instantly as soon as possible, or late to bait out an anti-air. But doing it late is riskier because it gives them more opportunities to blow it up. Whereas, like, if I do it here, look. Forward dash, and it gets stuffed. If I forward dash, I get hit. But if I jump as soon as possible, I get over it. But if I time the air fireball slightly later, jump, get hit. Forward dash, get under it. So, I should note that this cannot be done on reaction, the forward dash underneath it, and especially not knowing whether or not... So, I would say that this is the safer option, but you should only really do this very, very sparingly if you're thinking of... If you're intentionally trying to bait out the opponent's anti-air or anything, if you were expecting them to back recover, say... If you were expecting them to back recover, which is where you would get your safe jump, but say you can't safe jump them if they normal recover, then you can bait out their anti-air with a projectile. But depending on how you time your air fireball, they'll either be able to beat it by jumping over it or forward dashing under it as soon as they wake up, if they guess that you're going to do that. So you can mitigate the risk somewhat by having it so that they have to choose between those two options, because you can, like, in an okie situation, you can set yourself up so that, like, they can't air-to-air you and just beat you before you do anything. Because you have way too much frame advantage, you're already shooting the fireball by the time that happens. So you can mitigate the risk somewhat by making it so there's only one way to punish your air fireball, and it can't be done on a reaction. But that being said, plenty of characters have other ways to punish these, like Nash can just do that, and it doesn't matter. But in a normal circumstance, with a character that doesn't have that particular option or anything like that, that is one way that you can mitigate the risk by reducing the number of ways that the air fireball can even be punished if you use it as an anti-air bait. And there's an additional way in which you can bait them into forward dashing, which is to do the Stomp. The Stomp is fine, usually, if they, like, it can be whiff punished if they just wait and do nothing. But, if they back recover, it's totally fine. If you, like, say, do it before you can see whether or not they're normal recovering or back recovering. And it can bait out anti-airs, but there's usually not much point in doing that. Because, the Stomp also has, like, a pathetic amount of recovery, and, even if they whiff an anti-air, unless it's a big anti-air, like an uppercut or a flash kick, they will still be, at the frame advantage. So it's like Nash with here, I can just, like... I can option select that, because I can be like... I can whiff the anti-air and then do something that will punish it in the frames that I have remaining. Like so. So, that's still not that great, but what this is used for is doing it so that you'll punish them for trying to dash through underneath the air fireball. Which they might also try to do if you're just taking a... they won't be able to dash underneath your safe jump in that situation, but... If you think that they're going to try to dash or press a button or anything into... Or you want to bait an uppercut, specifically, because baiting other types of anti-airs with the Stomp is really useless. This will be active. The Stomp is active throughout the entire time, so if they dash into it, it will hit and give Falk plenty of time to do other things. Even though hitting with the Stomp is usually disadvantageous, in this situation, Falk can still control the situation without getting anti-aired. So if your opponent is trying to get like through your air fireball or whatever by dashing preemptively, like so, you can do a dive kick, and you'll usually hit them pretty meaty. In that particular instance, I hit him so meaty that I already landed when I hit with a dive kick, which allows you to get a full combo on the ground. But usually you'll hit them when you're still a little bit into the air, which you can combo into jumping medium kick depending on the spacing and how low you are to the ground already. When the safest thing to do depends like how high you hit them. If they dash into your stomp, like you can combo with jumping medium kick. But the generally like a safer option would be like to do say a jumping hard punch, just because even if you hit them with the jumping medium kick and it combos, you still like based on how quickly you fall, you won't have that much frame advantage once you hit the ground. Like you'll only be like +1 usually. So to avoid that, you can always just go for a jumping heavy punch, which you can combo sometimes as well. Like so, and you'll be significantly more plus, like +5. So it's a better idea to go for that. Like so. So that's like the gambit of sort of aerial okie options that you have off of certain knockdowns. Usually the only knockdowns that give you enough frame advantage to do that are like in V-Trigger or off of EX Catapult. To play that sort of game. If any other time you're basically you're at like too little frame advantage and you're basically just doing it in neutral. Which means that the opponent has like a billion different ways to beat your air fireball or anything and make sure that, you know, they anti-air you no matter what you do. But yeah, that's really important to Falk's okie game, is getting that. Making sure that she actually like stays on top of her opponents even if they back recover. You won't be like within throw range per se, but you can at least like still take it to them. And of course, like the main reason you would do this and do the safe jump, depending on like the character's anti-air options, like a character that can anti-air if they normal recover, you don't always want to play like the aerial guessing game, because the air fireball is never going to really be in Falk's favor. Even hitting with it usually leaves her at frame disadvantage after it hits. So instead, if you do like the safe jump setup if your opponent is back recovering off of this a lot, because this is already one of your better knockdowns that you can do. The gunshot after the EX Catapult gives you a much wider frame advantage than anything else that you can do off of it. So if your opponent back recovers a lot, you can just set up that and take that safe jump. And it still won't leave you like within throw range per se, but it will leave you at like a significant frame advantage, like plus 9 or plus 10 or whatever right here, which will give you a good lead in to continue your own pressure and move in to get a throw, much more so than like just any other old knockdown you can get on the ground where you don't have enough frame advantage to stop them from going into the air, like jump backing or something that will escape all of Falk's buttons that hit like tragically low to the ground, like anything else that she can poke with. That's the main thing that I wanted to show, but beyond that I can talk about like, not talk about because I've already mentioned this before, but just to recap. Okie in V-Trigger 1 basically boils down to doing anything into V-Skill into Standing Gunshot, or just Standing Gunshot by itself, like a forward hard punch into Standing Gunshot if you're close enough for it to get a knockdown, so not at this range, but there's like good merits in doing forward hard punch at this range when you're in V-Trigger 1, and then forward dashing twice. That's always just going to be your default okie, is doing that. That gives you perfect okie in mid-screen. There's no reason to... Couldn't ask for anything better than that. And in V-Trigger 2, you have a bunch of really good okie options, actually. The only guarantee... actually, doing the V-Trigger attack gets you good okie. You just forward dash and then walk forwards. Should be at plenty of a frame advantage to move in. Then once you're in V-Trigger, most frequently you'll be landing this because of how all the things you can use that to convert off of, like that sort of stuff. Which does have a better frame advantage on a knockdown than getting, like, say, your V-skill or your Schneide uppercut. Which means that you can also play that safe jump game with that. It's not anywhere near as good, but you still do, if the opponent back recovers, you still do have the time to, like, set up air fireballs to bait out their anti-airs so that you can get more jump-ins on your okie and get in better. And then beyond that, it's just like okie just boils down to doing anything into, like, Schneide, into that, which you just walk forwards and then you have, like, super good okie. It's not perfect okie if they back recover. You can't throw them before they can jab you out of it, but it's still great. And if you do want perfect okie, then you can just do like anything into uppercut, into that, and then forward dash, and then you're right there. Obviously, if like your opponent, you mainly do those setups to like chase down the opponent if they're back recovering a lot. Like I said, if they stop back recovering because of it, you might as well just like, if they stop back recovering and start normal recovering or anything like that, you still get perfectly good okie by just forward dashing instead, so you can start doing that. It's totally fine.